language, on and on and on. And let me show you that by using that word mishkafayim on the board. To begin with the syllabication, you begin with the letter mem. You always begin your syllables with a consonant. Underneath the mem letter, there's a chirik. The chirik, you double check your chart, is a short vowel. According to Ze'ev Garber's tabla, or luach, of the vowels, known as the Tzilut, I basically told you that short vowels, normally speaking, are part of a closed syllable. And Yirmiyahu and Baruch and Hannah should know that a closed syllable is either a shva under the letter which follows a short vowel, or a dagesh in the letter that follows a short vowel. In the case of Mishkafayim, you'll notice the mem has a chirik. On the shin, there's no dot, but under the shin, there is a shva, and you assume it's the shvanach. The shvanach is a silent shva, and that's what you want. You want the consonant to be blended to the chirik before, so that a short vowel and a closed syllable is its regular situation. That shvanach has no sound to it, and basically should not even be written out. That's what you're really saying, bish, bish, bish. You're not giving a sound to the shvanach at all. And so Baruch has learned a lesson from this class of mine, and that is that the old rabbis, as we call them, or the sages, or the Chachamim Zichronam Levracha, the sages, may their memories be for a blessing, felt that every letter should have a companion, should never be by itself. And I think that's a type of empathy, a type of sympathy, a type of endearment that you don't find, I don't think, in most languages. You know, this explanation, a letter should have a companion, should never be by itself, levad. And so that's why we write the shvan, need that shin. The only problem is the shvan, need the shin, can also be the other shva, which has a sound to it, and that we look at when we see it. When it happens, we give explanation when that occurs. But the first syllable, CVC. The second syllable has the kuf letter, the kamatz under it, and the kamatz we know can be one of three forms. It can be the long kamatz, which doesn't function anymore for our purposes, developed into the long kolam. It can be the medial kamatz, the medial, or the short kamatz. If the kamatz is a short kamatz, the rule of Hebrew is short kamatz should be part of a closed syllable, unaccented. Closed syllable, CVC, not accented. This kamatz is not part of a closed syllable. There's no dagesh chazak in the fei. There's no shvanach in the fei. The syllable is open, and that's a clear sign it cannot be a short kamatz. If it were, a short kamatz in an open syllable is irregular and demands the accent. So maybe that's what I should do. Maybe I should assume it's a short kamatz and give it an accent. If that were so, then we have a problem. That second kamatz, or that kamatz, is two places removed from the end. Actually, it's three places removed. Here it is, there's 1, 2 syllables that follow it. So chances are it's not going to be accented in the middle of the word. Hebrew syllabication or Hebrew accents in Sephardic Hebrew are the last syllable, unless you have to have an irregular situation before where the accent will be found before the last syllable. And indeed, take a look at the next syllable. You see on letter Fei? Well, a Fei is one of the 6 begakefah letters. A begakefah letter is not plosive if it follows a vowel, including a half vowel. That Pei letter is a Fei letter because it is following a vowel. In this case, it's a kamatz. We don't know yet if it's a short kamatz or a medial kamatz. But then that Fei has a patach under it. And the patach is what? It's a short vowel, closed syllable, but that patach is not followed by a dagesh and yud, nor is there shvanach on the yud. So that patach is an open syllable, irregular, and consequently draws the accent. The accent is on the second to last syllable, irregular patach, open syllable, and that explains why the kamatz under the kuf has to be medial kamatz. Why so? The medial kamatz is an open syllable. The medial kamatz, if it's a closed syllable, must be accented. And then a third rule about the medial kamatz it is either accented or one place, removed from the accent. See where the accent is? It's not the last syllable, it's the second to last syllable. See where the kamatz is? It's not two places removed from the accent, it's one place removed from the accent. Did you see what I did? You got a whole story of accents and emphasis in Hebrew based on that one word, mishkafayim, mishkafayim. And then the last syllable is CVC, which you don't mind having because it's a short vowel closed syllable and it's regular. And then there are other features about this word mishkafayim. We told you many times, words that end with a patak, yud, kirat, mem, is the sign of two-ness, duality. Think of the word shnayim and shnayim, the Hebrew word for two. Shnayim, look at that word. Shnayim is the masculine word for two, and shnayim is the feminine word for two. Both words end with a patak, yud, kirat, mem. And then parts of the body, the yad and yadayim, the ozen, the ear, and oznayim. Stop with that word, Professor. The word ozen. Ozen is ear. Ozen. What about Amida Cholam? Amida Cholam, whatever occurs to the word, always gets the accent. The word is not ozen, it's ozen. And then when I want to make it plural, it's a duality marker. Notice what has happened, that cholam becomes a short kamatz. Oznayim. Accent is on a short vowel patak, open syllable, and that media cholam reduces to a short kamatz. In fact, when you look at your chart with the AE, you know, that type of thing. The medial vowels are the medial cholam here, medial tsere here, medial kamatz here. And if you look at the short vowel, the letter O, the O sound, we have the short kamatz. So medial cholam, when it reduces to an O, to a short sound, it goes from O to O, O's, nine ears. Regel, regel, 1 minute, regel, raglayim, feet, raglayim. But there's another regel called regalim. Yeah, let's stop with that word. I'll take your question in a second, Baruch. The word regel. Regel by itself means foot. If I want to say feet, I guess we say 2 feet, raglayim. Raglayim, actually, when you say feet, the implication is 1 foot, 2 foot, so feet, raglayim. But if you want to be very specific about it, as far as I'm concerned, raglayim can only mean 2 feet. And if you want to say many feet, then the word would be regalim. Okay, seglet nouns in the plural. Seglet nouns in the plural. Do not forget the formula. Shva, kamatz, kirked men. And here's a very good example of the confusion. Regel by itself in the plural is regalim. Regel meaning 2 feet is raglayim. And in Jewish tradition, as Hannah, and Baruch well know, and Yirmiyahu, as you're now learning, there are 3 major holidays which have the title regalim. One is the holiday of Pesach. That's going to come up after the holiday of Purim. Let's get that word down on board. Pesach. 1 month after Purim, Purim is next week. So 1 month later is the holiday of Passover. Then you have the holiday called Shavuot, Shavuot, Shavuot. The holiday of the weeks, Shavuot, which is known by we Christians as Pentecost. Then there's a holiday called Tabernacles, which is known by Jews as Sukkot. And Sukkot will never go off the map, because on that seventh day of Sukkot, actually it's the day after Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, which fell out on the Shabbat in 2023, there was that massacre that basically has changed literally Jewish history. Lest you forget, October 7th was it? 2023. These three holidays, Pesach, Shavuot, not Shavuot, Shavuot. Stop it right there, Professor Garber. How come you're saying Shavuot and you're not saying Shavuot? The one we told the story that if you have a kamatz, it's either accented or one place removed from the accent. If it's several places removed from the accent, should not reduce for shvana. Look at the word Shavuot. Look at the word Shavuot. I see Sha, I see Vu, I see Ot, I see a long vowel and a closed syllable. It has to be accented. This kamatz is several places removed, should reduce for shvana. And my three witnesses, you are bearing witness to an unusual word. The kamatz here does not reduce to a shvana. And the only explanation, Baruch and Yirmiyahu and Hanan, is that kamatz is not a short kamatz or a medium kamatz. It is a classic example of a long kamatz. Long. Shavuot. What are you talking about? Doesn't that word mean weeks? Yeah. Let's look at the word Shavua. Shavua is the word for week. Shavua is what? You have CV for the first syllable. You have CVC for the second. Don't forget that a stone patak is not a real vowel. So we have the regular, the vet letter, the short letter, the I letter, with a note saying that the patak is the glide between the frontal vowel U and the original letter I. Shavua tov, when Shabbat ends, Shavua tov. But if I want to say weeks, the word would be Shavuot. This means weeks. This word is Shavuot. It's the same thing. I know it's the same thing, but it's a different word. It's special. Shavuot is the holiday. Shavuot means weeks. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. In the case of Shavuot, you treat the kamatz as it is, a medium kamatz. When it comes to the holiday Shavuot, for some reason, that kamatz remains as a kamatz and has to be seen as a long kamatz. I guess because there's something special about the holiday of Shavuot. And according to my fellow Jews on Shavuot, on that particular day, at the start of the summer, so to speak, at the end of the spring, there's Matan Torah Teno, the giving of the Torah. Which, by the way, if you don't know it, something's happening in America. As of the last time I met you last Thursday, and now Tuesday, the state of Louisiana, while you're listening, children, has now officially passed a regulation and law that every classroom in Louisiana will have the Aseret Dibrot, the 10 Commandments, on the wall. Louisiana. I suspect it will be in English. I'd love to see it in Hebrew. But why Louisiana? Something must be going on over there, Louisiana, that's pushed this thing. I can see to the south, where you have Christians all over the place. They'll probably insist on it now. Yeah, it's a new law now, Louisiana. It was passed the last couple of days. It's Louisiana. Of all the commandments, the 10 Commandments, and boy, one of them definitely stands out. And I ain't talking about committing murder, I'm talking about adultery. And that's gonna come out. As if children in the 6th grade will understand this stuff. It can be very embarrassing. Their parents can be affected by some of these legalities. And then what do you do? But that's not to be worried about. Anyway, Shavuot, and the word Sukkot and the word Pesach. And again, don't forget your Hebrew grammar. Pesach, Notice that sego underneath that pay, short vowel, open syllable, therefore is accented. Pesach, not Pesach, Pesach. And Sukkot, you have the kubitz underneath that samech, goes by the Ragesh Chazak and the Chaf. When you write without vowels, Israelis write the word Sukkot like this. They put a vav letter to represent the kubitz. And they don't know how to say Sukkot. If this were truly a true shura, then this guy should be open, should be Sukkot. But they don't worry about Slavication. Anyway, back to my words here. The word regalim means feet. Raglayim means 2 feet. And the word regalim by itself can also be a term to imply 3 of the holidays I listed on the board: Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Why so? Because these were, quote unquote, the 3 mandatory holidays during the year. Back in the day when you didn't have cars and get you around, you made every effort to visit Yerushalayim. If you can do it 3 times a year, Shavuot, Sukkot, and Pesach. And back in the day, everybody lived in the same land, you might say, though it took time to travel. So they're known as the Shlosha, they're known as the 3 regalim, the 3 pilgrimage holidays. So the word regalim has also a religious connotation: pilgrimage, walking by foot. It's interesting how a language basically stays the same, even though the vehicles are now part of our lives: cars, locomotives, planes. We still use feet language or foot language. Okay, that word ayim, anything with that ayim ending seems to imply duality. In addition to parts of the body, just think about it. Shadayim is our breasts. Breasts are 2 breasts. Shadayim. Singular word is shade. What else has that ayim ending to it? The word shamayim. Shamayim is a classic word that shows duality. And shamayim, once you look at that word is found in the very opening sentences, not in the Hebrew Bible. Reshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the very first pasuk of the Hebrew Bible, that word shamayim is there. And back in the day, shamayim has a duality to it, and I guess the duality was meant to mean the sense of 2 components that made up a heavenly source. One is the word mayim, water, the rains that come, and the other is that letter shin, standing for ish, for fire. Fire. Thunderbolts. Thunder. And again, don't forget your Hebrew grammar. See the kamatz underneath that shin? That kamatz, open syllable, will basically have the sense of being a medial kamatz. But a medial kamatz should be part of an accented syllable or one place removed from the accent. When you look at your word, it looks like the accent is on the last syllable, but it isn't. Look at the mem letter, it has a patach under it, short vowel patach is open, irregular, has to be accented. The word shamay, the accent is on the mem, not on the yud here mem. CVC is the last syllable. And now take a look at the word mayim. If what you said, Professor, words that have that patach, the patach yud here mem is a sense of duality, why does the word water, just the word water, have duality to it? What's the duality of the word water? Unless you want to be a little open-minded, and what exactly is the formula of the word water scientifically?
What, H2O?
Again?
H2O?
Thank you. Ever think of why the number 2 is spelled with the letter H?
So there's 2.
I have no idea. I'm just making a joke. All I know is, that's the way you give interpretation. I'm serious, I'm giving you a little midrash right now, has no sense of fact about it. But don't you see how you can twist things around? I mean, as a kid, the first formula I ever studied was H2O. I don't know why Mayim has a duality marker to it. Unless water as water consists of not just simply one element, but two elements as understood by the ancients of old. I don't know what else to say, but I just find it interesting. I'm trying to think of other words. Anything that you have with that that particular formula, Patak Yod Mem, see if it has a sense of two-ness to it.
Wine, what about wine?
Okay, wine is tempting, but wine is yayin.
Oh, Shemayim.
It has to be Patak Yod Mem.
Oh, okay.
But yayin is another interesting word. If you look at the word yayin, we don't say yayin. Yayin, the patak is a short vowel, accent on the first syllable. When you accent the first syllable of the word yayin, it's not because you're drunk. It's just that Hebrew grammar demands it that way. Yayin. And I find it interesting. Look what I'm doing right now. Numerical value of the word yayin. Yud is 10, Yud is 10, Nun is 50, yayin equals 70. What are you trying to say? What I'm trying to say is every Hebrew letter has a numerical value to it, and if you play around with gematria, all those Hebrew letters or numbers can give you a lesson. The number 70 is often seen as a culmination of life, thanks to King David. Number 70 starts a new sense of life. And yayin. Yirmiyahu, do you enjoy a glass of yayin? Okay. Baruch, I think, does.
What is that, wine? Wine?
Yeah, you like wine?
For Shabbos?
Yeah, for sure. You get a certain high from it.
In the hangover, you drink too much, well, the wine hangover is heavy.
All I know is there's something mysterious about yayin. In fact, people, you got a holiday coming up right now. This Purim holiday, we'll talk about it next week. Until you cannot distinguish between cursed Mordechai, sorry, God forbid, blessed Mordechai, and cursed him. You're supposed to drink all the time. So I am told. But what you don't know, my fellow Jews, it says Ad Shalom. Until Shalom, you do not know. You don't get drunk. And one of the big problems of the Hasidim particularly, and Lubavitcher had this problem in Westwood. You don't let the young college kids drink and drink. You gotta stop it. They'll get arrested. Ad Shalom, up until you can't distinguish. Not you can't distinguish. And Yirmiyahu wants to know what's the big deal about wine or whiskey or whatever you want to call it, intoxicating liquids, how they go for it. It has to deal with a decision whether the Jews will be murdered or not. They're all dealt with drinking that wine. So the story of Esther goes. And as my good friend Hannah basically should know, that of all the cultures in the ancient world, the one place where beer was cultivated to the point of excellence was in Iran. The Persians. They're known for it. I don't know if they drink beer now in Persia. With the Muslim tradition, I don't know if they drink anything there. I suspect they do. Iran is not, quote, Muslim. If anything, you want to get rid of all this Muslim business. And as my wife tells me, why don't I wake up? I have a wife that has a great opinions. One day she'll come to class and you'll be shocked to see who Mrs. Garber is. She says, you know what's going on in New York? I said, Susan, what's your problem now? The Muslims have taken over Times Square. They're all praying in the center of Times Square. You gotta look at yesterday's headlines. They had prayer services all over the streets of Times Square. You know, I don't know, then they interviewed a Christian, because their Allah is a phony God, their Muhammad is a phony prophet. There's gonna be a fight right now. I mean, it's not, it could be avoided with respect to the traditions, but apparently it's getting very tense. When Muslims pray, as Yochai would tell us, they completely are on the ground, boom, 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 boom. I have personally no problems with this, but apparently taking over public streets and doing this business. Keep in mind, it's the month of Ramadan. Ramadan, I understand, is supposed to be a month of confessional, of good deeds, etc. And maybe in honor of all that, they took over the streets in New York now, with a Muslim mayor. You know, look at the last headlines the last day or two, you'll see stories of that nature. All right, people, back to our Hebrew, we've got to keep in mind with that. And by the way, on Thursday, if it's possible, bring a Hebrew Bible to class. You can bring your English Bible, but I like to look at some of the Hebrew texts, and I want to concentrate on the Shabbat that's coming up, called Shabbat Zachor. Not Purim. Purim will be next week. I just want to call to your attention one or two Hebrew phrases, which we already know, but you want to see it in the reading for this coming Shabbat. And you'll see what that is if you're able to bring a Hebrew Bible to class. Otherwise, you'll follow it with an English interpretation that I'll give to it. Anyway, let's get back now to our Hebrew. I'm so grateful I'm able to see now with my mishkafayim, with my glasses. Last time it was very difficult, but I managed to get through some of it. I'm grateful that you were able to encourage me and be able to support me, and so I thank you for that. Okay, where we're at right now, let me see if I can find a place now.
It was 75, 76.
Okay, that's all I want to hear. Okay, well, basically at page 75, he claims.
Around there.
And we're beyond that.
78.
Yeah, okay, just one second. Well, unit number 3. Yeah, what we did was, just one second right now.
Page 80.
Wait a minute. I know what we did was we read, we had all those words, one second now. The first thing we did right after the vocabulary, just, it'll come back to me in a second. We did the vocabulary on page 78, we finished that off. And then we went into, okay, page 80, that's what we did there.
Okay.
Yeah, different subjects, physica, etc., yeah. I think page 80 is where we left off. All right, let me look at page 80 with you right now, because the first word there, I'm looking very carefully, the word for physics. There should not be a negation at pay. If there is, then would you do me a favor and just make a marker? The word should be physica, not physica. Is there a negation in the letter pay on page 80 in your text?
No.
I don't
And
think so.
physics, the first one, no.
Okay,
There's
okay.
accent.
All right, there should be, I'm looking at my particular text, which is not the edition you have, and it's so blurry over here, it's a new text. And basically, it looks like there's a dot there, but if there is one, get rid of that dot. The word is physica. And let me say a word about physica. If the word begins with one of the Becker-Keffer letters, should not therefore be plosive. I mean, the plosive Becker-Keffer letter is if it follows a consonant in the middle of a word, or if it begins a word. So how come you're saying it should be F sound rather than P sound? And the reasoning is, if a D does not follow the Hebrew grammar as you were taught, then it's because the word is, quote, not Hebrew. It is most probably borrowed into the language, and therefore the borrowing is the reason why we don't follow the rules of Hebrew grammar the way they should be followed. The word is physics, an F sound, so physica in Hebrew. The same thing goes with that word chemia. Again, I don't know if you have a dot in there or not. The chemia, I think you all seem to suggest there is a dot. I suggest that also chemia would be the reading. I now have my dictionary in front of me. Unlike Thursday, where I couldn't see the dictionary, I'm gonna check out the spelling of Mr. Ben-Yehuda's dictionary here. And whatever this dictionary seems to suggest, I would suggest is the accepted form. I know it as chemia, not as chemia. I'm willing to recognize it as chemia. And let me just see if I even have a word for it here in my dictionary, which is it's not an inclusive one. It's just basically most of the words. Well, let me see if I have something for chemia. Just 1 minute. Don't think I have it here. I'm looking at the Hebrew per se. I'm looking for the spelling of it. I don't see anything with that word chemia. How interesting. It could very well be that a dictionary that's meant to be an everyday dictionary would not include such words as this, given it's a Hebrew word, but it's in the classroom more than it would be in everyday speech, and maybe for that reason, the word is not found here. Let me look at the English to Hebrew part. And if he doesn't have it for the word chemistry, then the word is not found in this dictionary at all. I have dictionaries at home which are much more inclusive. I'm not going to be able to shut them through, because the campus. All right, let me see what I have the word chemistry here. I have the word chemistry, chemia. Okay. Hi, ladies and gentlemen, the official spelling of the word for chemistry is chemia, with a dagesh kaf with a kaf. So, Professor, how come you insisted on the word chemia? It's like the word physica. If you look at the word chemistry, it's spelled C-H. And I guess it's that C-H that gives me the sense of ch in Hebrew, and so chemia. But the proper spelling, based on the dictionary I have in Ben-Yehuda's dictionary, pocket dictionary, the word should be chemia, put the dagesh kaf in that kaf letter. The word musica. And notice with the first 3 words here, the accent is on the first syllable. Again, it's not following Hebrew grammar. There's no need to say why musica has an accent on the shuruk. The shuruk is a long vowel, open syllable, it's regular, it doesn't have to be accented, and yet it is, probably because of the English one, the anti-European sound. Music, musica, mathematica. In the case of mathematics, the accent is on the 3rd syllable. If you look at mathematica, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 syllables. Ma, te, ma, ti, ka. And the accent is not the last syllable, but the 3rd from the last syllable. And one possible explanation is if a word has multiple syllables, how are you going to say it with an accent at the end? So you have it in the middle of the word. That's the only possible explanation I can give why mathematica is accented in the middle of the word, whereas musica and chemia and physica have it on the first syllable. They're all borrowed words, but mathematica has an additional syllable than the other syllables I read. In fact, it has 2 additional syllables. And look at the word for psychology, psychologia. And sure enough, it's the 3rd syllable that's accented, isn't it? And mathematica, it's the 3rd syllable. So when a word like psychologia has 1 syllable, psi, ho is the 2nd syllable, lo is the 3rd syllable, gi is the 4th syllable, ya is the 5th syllable. 5 syllables from psychologia, and syllable number 3 is accented. Mathematica has 5 syllables, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and syllable number 3. And look at the next word. Philosophia has 5 syllables, and syllable number 3, so, is accented. And the same thing is true of sociology. also 5 syllables. Then biologia, also 5 syllables. So a 5-syllable word, the middle of the word seems to get the emphasis. Again, it's just simply a tradition. Has nothing to do with open syllables, closed syllables, irregular syllables. These words are borrowed. And when you hear the word mathematica, you'll assume it means math. Psychologia is psychology. Philosophia is philosophy. Sociologia, sociology. Biologia, historia. And I find it interesting that all these categories, well, she says it here, they are Latin words for European languages, line number 1 on page 80. But they're all in the feminine gender. And isn't that interesting? The feminine gender is the gender in Hebrew for abstract words. Yeah. When something is very specific, then the masculine gender can come in. If something is abstract, the tendency in the Hebrew language is to have the word as feminine. And I find it interesting that a number of these words have the ya as part of its syllables. And now watch me do a religious interpretation. Why does psychologia, philosophia, sociologia, biologia, historia end with ya? Ya in the church, ya in the synagogue is God.
They're Latin-based words. That's part of the reason.
Well, the God signature. And believe me, a sermon can be based on something like that. When it comes to philosophy, the God content. Biology, the God input. Historia, how things work out the way they do and don't. How many times do you consult heaven above and say, why God? And why do you look to heaven above all the time? May God not be right here in this classroom? His presence? Or the way Garber runs a classroom, God has a hard time entering the closed doors. What am I going to do? Sit among 3 people? Do you understand? I am not making a joke. This is how language develops to get a point across. If God's signature is found with a number of these disciplines, should you not also be careful on how you use these disciplines? What you could do with them, with biology, transgender, destroy people. You have no idea what could come across from this. Just an observation, and that's the way you develop concepts. Okay, in the case of Historia, I think the last thing I told you last time was that Jewish history is seen with a different word. Historia is European language. Divrei Yamim, the events of the days, is how Jews understand history. And Divrei Yamim would be, of course, events, how you conduct yourself. That's how the story is basically told. And maybe that's the emphasis I want to say to you. Judaism, the religion, when it comes down to it, has many stories to tell. But one particular lesson is a thing called Tikkun Olam. This is very big among religious Jews who are reformed. Tikkun Olam. Tikkun Olam is making the world better. Tikkun Olam is fixing the world, regulating the world. That's what your obligation should be every day. Do an act of forgiveness, an act of encouragement. A story that both Yirmiyahu and I have seen on my Facebook, I put it there, of a soldier who wants to give thanks to another soldier who's now on his deathbed. Vietnamese War. That soldier was about to die, saved 3 other colleagues of his when they were 19, 20 years old. He never was thanked by them. How can you in a war like that? One of them never forgot that, he never said thank you. And for 47 years, he searched for that soldier to thank him. He found him in a hospital now on his deathbed. He parked illegally, quote, in the hospital. He just had to tell this man, I want to thank you. That's a tikkun olam. The judge heard the case, threw it out the window. What you did is something nobody does. And Zev Garber has a Hebrew lesson to that. And let that lesson be part of today's lesson of Tikkun Olam. The word Todah. How often we say that word. What you don't know is that the word vidui, confessional, is related to the word Todah. I'm sorry. I want to thank you. And the way you say that word, thank you, there's a certain feeling that should be put into it. You don't have to say thank me now. After so many years, I'm sorry. My life is owed to you. That's what I like about Hebrew. That word for confessional, vidui, vav daled hey, is the same root for the word todah. And how do you say you're welcome in Hebrew? Hebrew does not have, quote unquote, the word you're welcome. The best you can say is bavakasha. Now it gets crazy. Bavakasha is the Hebrew word for please, P-L-E-A-S-E. If I want something right now, bavakasha taseh, bavakasha. When I say the word todah addressed to me, bavakasha. You say it, bavakasha. When I say bavakasha, I'm not pleading, bavakasha. And isn't that interesting? The word to plead, P-L-E-A, and the word for thank you in the sense of, thank you, what can I say? It's the same word. One is to demand something, and the other one is gratitude. How much more so when you demand something and it's done, you should be grateful. That's the gratitude. And Todah, how many people would associate Todah with a confession? The Tikkun Olam. The word Tikkun Olam is to make the world a little different, a little better, etc. And maybe for that reason, you have the Hebrew word for history, Divrei, the events of the days. How people act. There's no question about it. Take the example of Jesse Jackson. One thing his family wanted so desperately is to have Mr. Reverend Jackson to be lying in state in Washington here. It was denied. And then you say, so why? Because he's a black man? Is this not? I suspect if you want to be very, very careful about this, has nothing to do with color or position per se, unless you had the position of a head of a state or something of that nature. And so you can cite other examples, including the vice president who passed away recently. Cherny, whatever his name is, also was denied that particular respect.
Dick Cheney.
If there are rules and regulations, maybe that's what was considered, but it's not seen that way by those who feel the other position. Jeremiah?
Do you remember Reverend Billy Graham? You remember him?
Yes.
He was there.
Yes, he did.
They did him.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
That's a good example of
Yeah.
a reverend that basically had no position and nothing
Yeah.
happened. And then you can argue, well, he's a reverend, so is Reverend Jesse Jackson. But then the Reverend Jesse Jackson apparently did not finish ministry school right away. It's like an honorary degree, so I read. It's irrelevant. But the point is, what's the difference? It could be the more persuasive power that Billy Graham had than Jesse Jackson had. But Jesse Jackson ran for president twice. Billy Graham did not. It can be all kinds of arguments. I'm sure that was thrown out as well.
Yeah.
Billy Graham had a big organization.
Yeah.
His son inherited.
How's that?
Billy Graham established a big organization and following.
Yeah.
Did his son inherit that?
Well, Jesse Jackson also had a tremendous following as well, etc. I don't know what the factors
But he was more like a
I can just tell you that the official
politician.
position was, these are the conditions to be lying in state, etc. Then they throw in the name of Charlie Kirk, who would have been excellent for the conservatives, whatever, but he was denied immediately as well. You can say it about all kinds of people, and that's it. And then what's gonna happen the day that Mr. Trump passes? What's gonna happen with his lying state? There'll be all kinds of arguments, I'm sure. All right, people, the main thing is, what you're saying is all true. It's all controversial, and that's how it goes. I suspect they've now buried Jesse Jackson. You can't just have him lying in state somewhere until you get what you want. I don't know. I presume he's been buried. I don't know. All right, people, getting back to our Hebrew again, on page 80, I think we basically read the Hebrew. We did that last time. Okay, I'm now looking at page 81. As I'm now looking at 81, Anglia. Again, notice the Hebrew vocalization. Not every letter seems to have a vowel attached to it. And the only explanation I can give, when this book was printed, it was printed first with consonants and the vowels were handwritten. Today you pick up a Hebrew script and vowels and the consonants go together, boom, 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 it's over with. Back in the day, the consonants alone, then the handwritten script was for the vowels, which might explain why underneath the nun of Anglia, there's no shvana. Under the gimel, there's no shvana. The case of Anglia, notice how I'm saying it, a shvana underneath the nun, and a shvana underneath the gimel. Angelia, Angelia, Angelia. The negation at Yud with Angelia is a strong dagesh to close a short kirik underneath the lamed. For England, Angelia. And let me say something about England right now. England is now headlines all over the place, and perhaps the thing that stands out at this moment is not the Muslim takeover of England, but the Epstein files and Andrew, and everybody else that's getting involved here, etc., etc. The one thing I can tell you about England that stands in my mind is that the English also have another name, and don't get disturbed by it. It's called British. British. Go figure it. The Jews have been told to leave the countries in which they were raised in for centuries, get out of here. One country that got rid of Jews and invited them back again is a country called England. 300 years on, how many years Jews were out of England? The English people call themselves British. It never dawned on you that the word British is British. An official interpretation of the word British.
A covenant of a woman or something like that?
Brit is covenant, ish is person. The British Empire took on the actual terminology of the chosen children of Israel, the British, the people of the covenants. I was told that to my face. by a member of the Anglican Church. I don't know if he's playing with my head, or this is something they pick up somewhere and becomes so popular, they don't get rid of it. So to be very scientific about it, I don't know the origin of British. I can tell you, it's very tempting to say that British is people, the word each means individual or person of the Brit, of the continent. And I don't think the word British for the English is because every Englishman got circumcised. Far from it. Circumcision was left to the Jews, I guess, and the Muslims eventually. But I find it interesting that British has that word Brit in it and confident in it, no one else up there. And as far as circumcision goes, the Igbos, my good friend Yemiyawa, check out on that Nigerian group. They are very big on Jewish traditions. They claim to be black Israelites. They claim to be black Jews and all that type of stuff there. And that's how they go with this stuff. And again, that term black Hebrews, let's just stop there for a moment. I can't go into it right now, but you'll almost see what I'm gonna say right now. That word Hebrew is not the word Jew. That word Jew is something we link to the Jewish people. That word Hebrew, the Habiros, the Ivreim, etc., is supposed to be synonymous with the word Jew. But isn't. And when Abraham is first introduced, is introduced as Abraham HaIvri. Abraham HaIvri does not have a Jewish mother, nor do they have a Jewish father. His Jewish father, Terah, was not Jewish at all, worship idols all over the place. And yet you Jews are dumb enough to assume that Abraham is called a Jew. He's called HaIvri. Well, the word Ivri is another word for being Jewish. That's because you Jews have taken over that word Ivri. And people like Yemiyahu will say, excuse me, that word Ivri happens to be more generic than you think it is. And black African Jews call themselves black Hebrews, a lot of them do, claiming that their origins are the Ivris.
Do they claim a specific tribe, like the tribe of Ephraim or something like that?
It was a Biafra. The business of the anniversary is a Biafra of in Nigeria, where there was a massacre that took place in the 1970s, was it? Or 65? I'm not sure now. These are the Igbos, or whatever they call themselves. They affirm they're black Hebrews. They practice a hell of a lot of Judaism, quite frankly. And they make the insistence to, go around with the word Ivri. And all you gotta do is take a look at Moses has a wife by the name of, who's basically a, why am I having memory slap right now?
Zipporah?
Well, Zipporah is one wife, but you also have another wife where Miriam gets very disturbed by her. The Jews out of Ethiopia see themselves as.
I think Jetro's daughter was Zipporah.
One second, I'm trying to think of the word right now. The Ethiopian Jews, but they have another name for themselves. They're Beta Israel. Anyway, whatever the Jews from Ethiopia, people from Ethiopia, the Cushites. Is that the term I want to use? I'm not sure right now. All I know is Moses is supposed to have a wife of that nature. And then you'll have other women, Ammonites. The minute you have intermarriage with other groups, basically would imply the Jewish content is not exclusive. The It's funny how I'm having a lapse right now. But basically, you have this thing. Yeah, the Kushim. Let me just see something right now. Bear with me.
But I'll tell you what, it's confusing.
One second, Baruch. I'm looking at the Noach story where you have the four names there. Just one second. Shem, Ham, and Yafet. So I'm looking at chapter number 10 of Genesis, which will have, you have Ham, you have Cush, you have Mitzrayim, you have Put. Yeah, Cushite. Okay. Moses has a woman a wife who's known as a Cushite woman. And that word Cush is associated today with Ethiopia.
Don't they also have the Kushite mountains like in India or something like that?
Yeah, could be. But the important thing is that Moshe, forget about the Jewish connection, is raised in an Egyptian household, whatever. One of his wives is Zipporah. She's basically of Jethro, the Druses, you might say. And then Moses has a Cushite woman. And somehow you portray Moses with a white beard or white skin and stuff like that. And that's where the problem comes in. And if you take a look at some of these programs I now see on my computer, you have black this and black that, and then at the very end, you have a picture, a caricature of a white Jew with a large nose saying, where do these people come from? What's happening now, and you might want to look into it, is a tradition that's now been restarted, that black folks are really the remnants of the black Israelites, of the Hebrews originally, and how is it that now Jews are the ones who have taken over, meaning the white people? So as long as you want to see yourself as the original Israelites, etc., then you better start doing some of these Israelite traditions. And there's now a movement within black Africans to rediscover Judaism. The problem is once they do, they pop into Orthodox Judaism all of a sudden. It's not unusual to find black folks in Israel running around with fringes underneath their shirts, kippot on their heads, going to yeshivot. I had a former student who was married to a black Hasidic Jew from France. She goes by the name of Bina Malka. Her father was an American soldier, comes from a Baptist background, and she tells me, I'm so happy being a black Orthodox Jew. And so we're saying, why don't you come to Israel now? You see, it's remarkable to see this. And all I can tell you is, if a black African wants to see an Ivri connection, they can use statements I just said just now. And once that happens, well, you have it right now with the Jewish black Americans, I would say, where there's so much similarity, and then there's a separation, and then the similarities again. Anyway, Israel basically will have an aliyah of African Jews coming, and it will make its numbers go up and up and up. It's going to possibly happen. Jews come from every conceivable land in the country, in the world. Every land. From Asia to Europe. And you have people who convert to Judaism who come from all kinds of Catholic or Christian backgrounds. Go figure that out. But the more you insist on Jesus practicing Judaism, the more that message seems to be getting out. And I, as a practicing Jew, I'm concerned about that. Watch what you're doing. But all right, this is the traditions that are now happening. It's exciting to see it. Okay, let's get back to our Hebrew right now. The word Anglia, the word Italia. And again, notice these 4 or 5 countries, from England to Germany. Each one of them has a ya. Anglia, Italia, Romania, Russia. For Russian, it's Russia, Germania. And if you want me to play on with this thing with a little theology, I find it interesting that countries called England, Italy, Romania, Russia, and Germany all have the ya at the end. May that not give you also a theological lesson? God's sign is in all these countries, known in World War II, to destroy one way or another, by indifference or by action, 2/3 of European Jewry. Where's God in all this? Or maybe God, as God, is a partner with all these European nations in the destruction of the Jews. ain't that a mean statement to say? Or take Islam. Do you think Islam is at all innocent when it comes to killing Jews? There are verses in the Quran, I'm told, find a Jew behind a tree somewhere and whack him.
But the Crusades.
This is what can happen, but I guess for me, that's history. But from a theological point of view, why does the Hebrew language have the Yah with these different countries? Is it our way of saying, Hashem, you owe us an answer? Why were you indifferent? Quiet. And right away, there's going to be a tremendous debate. There's no answer to what I'm asking. Nor is it legitimate what I'm asking. I'm asking for my own little restriction. And when it comes to Asian countries, Japan, Sin, I don't see any there. On the other hand, what's the experience of Jews as Jews in Asian countries? There always has been, I'm told, but not of great significance as you have in the Middle East, for example, or as you have definitely in Europe. Japan is Japan. And the word for China is Sin. And you say to yourself, okay, Japan looks like the word Japan. Yud, Pei, Nun, J, P, N. What's the connection between China and Samech, Yud, Nun in Hebrew? Unless the Chinese word for China sounds something like Sin. And then that word Sin itself sounds like the word Sinai. It's just a curious play upon letters, I guess. And then the languages. Notice each one of the languages ends with the Hirut Tav. Notice from Hebrew 1, words ending with Shuruk Tav, Segot Tav, Kamatz He, and Hirut Tav are the normal marker of a feminine singular noun. In this case here, language is meant to be an adjective. So Anglit is really English as a feminine adjective, modifying the word Safa. I told you that already. Anglit for English, Italkit for Italian, Romanit for Romanian, Russit, Germanit, Japanit, Sinit, and for Persian is Farsit. And then you have little distinctions. Israel is the country, but the country's language is not Israelite, but it is Ivrit. And let me take issue with that. The Ivrit that she's using here is due to the fact that Edna Coffin is over 80 years old. Israelis today would take issue with that word, that Ivrit is the language of Israel. Write down the word Yisraelit. Israelis are now into identifying their Hebrew, and rightly so, not as Ivrit, but as Yisraelit. I'm not basing myself on any kind of reading right now. It's just my sense of what's happening. Yisraelit. Add the word Yisraelit. Israeli Hebrew is different now than Hebrew called Ivrit. Genders are no longer distinguished. Words come into Hebrew now, and they're mocked up by current traditions, not by ancient laws of language. And notice how I spell the word Israeli. Syllabication will stay the same, CVC. The Achir and the Yush Vanachan the sin letter. The Resh has a kamatz under it. The kamatz is either accent or one place to move from the accent. And then look at the aleph. Under the aleph is a tzerei. The tzerei letter attracts the accent. 9 out of 10 times. The accent is on that serate. The kamatz is one place removed from the accent. And the last syllable is CBC. Israelite. Israelite. I've seen that word Israeli to be the language of Hebrew in Israel today. How often is it used? I can't really speak for that, but I will tell you there are changes I'm aware of that speak not Hebrew, but speak Israeli. So when we use that word Israelite, the word Sorfat is the word for France, Sorfat. The word Sfarad is the word for Spain. And I guess I'm trying to say to myself, where does it really differ? She writes above, names of countries and their languages are similar to those used in English. So what's the problem between France and Sorfat and Sorfati, French? In Sfarad, I can see with the word Yisrael being not Israelite, let's say, but being Ivrit. But I see a connection, do you not as well? Sorfat looks like Sorfati. Sfarad looks like Sepharadite. And look at that word Sepharadite, playing upon the notion of the accent. She doesn't show where the accent is. But based on what I teach you as to be Hebrew grammar, the accent has to be over the resh, Sepharadi. So the chamatz on the resh is accented, and the chamatz on the tefeh is one place removed from the accent. And then something else that is not a concern of Edna Coffin. I have a Tanakh in English in front of me. The shortest book of the Hebrew Bible is the book of Obadiah, Ovadja. Ovadja means servants, one who is obeyed, one who serves, one who's a slave even, of God. What I should do is look at the table of contents. I don't like doing that. So I'm gonna go page by page by page and try to find the book of Obadiah. In fact, I passed it, why don't I see it? Just bear with me. I got Ezra here, I got Daniel here, I got Esther here, I got Ecclesiastes, Lamentations, I got Job. Should be in this area here. Maybe this particular Bible has its own orders to it. Zechariah, okay. Nahum, okay. I see Jonah, I see Amos, I see Joel, Isaiah, I should see Amos. Let me go over, I got Micah here.
You got an index.
Yes, 1 minute. Habakkuk. Haggai. All right, I can tell you why I'm not seeing it in a second. But first, Malachi is the end of what's called the 12 books, 12 minor books. I know I'm skipping over it. Okay, I'm gonna work back. For Zechariah, I have Haggai. Zephaniah, Habakkuk, Nahum, Micha, Jonah. My goodness.
So small, that's why.
It's before Jonah. No, it's before Micha. No, it's Jonah first. And then there is Obadiah, then there's Amos. Obadiah is found on page 818 of this particular English translation, and it ends on page 820, 819. It is one chapter. The shortest book of the Hebrew Bible is Obadiah. And in the book of Obadiah, you have an English translation, if I can find it, in the captivity of the host of the children of Israel. Notice it doesn't say the Hebrews, it says children of Israel that are among the Canaanites and to a place called Sarfat, and the captivity of Jerusalem that is Sfarad shall possess the cities of the south. sentence number 20 of the book of Obadiah, which has only one chapter, the second to the last chapter in that book mentions the words Sfarfat and Sfarad, France and Spain. What? So how come the English does not have France or Spain? It says that among the Canaanites, even to Tsarfat, it does not translate it as France. And the captivity of Jerusalem, that is in Sfarad, does not say Spain. It's very clear why. Tsarfat and Sfarad are later understandings of those two names. Originally, Tsarfat and Sfarad was some kind of small colony somewhere not far from the land of Israel, back in the day. There was no such thing as France or Spain, not as far as the book of Obadiah goes. Later in history, the name Spain and France comes about for the Israelites or the Jews, and so they borrow these terms from the book of Obadiah. And you might say to yourself, well, that's philosophy. You're borrowing someone else's name. But how many people would even know of these names if it's based on one sentence in the shortest book of the Hebrew Bible? I don't know why. It's just that Tsarfat and Sfarad are both mentioned in the book of Obadiah. And I doubt if it means Spain or France. That word Tsarfat. Let's look at the Hebrew. You see the Kamatsuni Tatsali? I pronounce as an Osa, which means that the Shvan meet the Resh, I pronounce as a Shvanach. So I should say Tsarfat. Why am I saying Tsarfat? Why am I giving an F sound to it? Again, the word quote unquote, quote unquote, quote unquote, is borrowed. Oh, it's found in the book of Obadiah. So what are you going to say when it's borrowed? Or even in Obadiah, I could say the word is not, quote, Israelite or Judean or Hebrew. It's a country, it's a landmass somewhere in the area of Israel of old. Otherwise, I should read the word as Tsarifat. But everybody says Tsarfat. Short Kamatsuni Tzadi. Sfarad is not a problem. And in the language, Sfaradit, Sarfatit. Again, that Hiruk Tav is a sign of a feminine singular adjective. And let me again, before we take our break, show you that. If I take the word Ivri, let's take two words which today are interchangeable for the word Jew. One is the word Yehudi, and one is the word Ivri. The word Ivri by itself means Hebrew as a noun, a proper noun. It means Hebrew as an adjective. Ani korei sefer Ivri. I read a Hebrew sefer. Ani Ivri. I am a Hebrew. So my second sentence is a noun, a pronoun, in this case a proper noun. My first sentence I'm using as an adjective. When it comes to the feminine singular, Ivriya, is the noun, and Ivrit is the adjective. Languages are seen as Safa. Safa is a feminine noun, and so Ivrit is a feminine singular adjective. Ivriya is a Hebrew woman. The plurals now. Ivrim is masculine plural as a noun. Ivriim is the adjective. Ivriim. Yeah. Ivrim is the noun, Ivriyim is the adjective. And the feminine plural, adjective and noun for feminine plural is Ivriot. Ivriot. Ivriot is either an adjective or a noun. Notice the difference. In the singular form, the masculine is noun or adjective. In the case of the feminine, it's the feminine plural that's either adjective or noun. And now do the same thing with the word Yehudi. As I'll do it over here. Well, I should do it side by side. Ivri and Yehudi. Yehudi is the Hebrew noun for Jew. It's also the adjective, Jewish. Comes the feminine, the word Yehudiah, Yehudiah. So in the case of Hannah, she is Yehudiah. She is a Jewish woman, Yehudiah. And then as an adjective, it's Yehudit. I'm a Yehudit. I am Jewish. You can say I'm a Yehudit, meaning it's an adjective, where you say Yehudiah.
That's a woman's name as well, isn't it? Yehudi.
Yehudit is the adjective. Yehudiah is the noun.
Oh, because I was under the understanding that
That's the feminine one.
that the Cohen's daughter that cut the Roman general's head off, her name was Yehudi, but it was Yehuda.
Baruch, I don't hear you.
And during the Hanukkah, the Roman general, he was defiling all the young women before they got married. So the Cohen's daughter went, she got him drunk, and she cut his head off. And it was my understanding that her name is Yehudit, but you're saying it is probably Yehuda.
I'm not quite sure what you're referring to.
The feminine name of Yehudit.
Yehudit is, okay, the word Jew, if you want it in English, is, depends on the name the person gets. Yehudit, normally you have the word Yehudit as a name. If you know what Judy in Hebrew, her name will be Yehudit. They don't walk around with the name Yehudiah. Yehudiah as a noun means a Jewish woman, and Yehudit is an adjective, but as a name, the name you give a daughter, you call her Yehudit. But Yehudit itself, like the word Ivrit, is not really a noun, it's the adjective form. That's where people get mistaken. In English, you say, what language do you speak? I speak Hebrew, I speak French, I speak Persian. And we use languages as a noun. We don't say it's the adjective. Hebrew, the names for languages are adjectives. And then when it goes into the plural forms, the masculine plural will be Yehudim. Yehudim. And then the form Yehudim, Yehudim is the adjective. Yehudim. So as Jews, we call ourselves Anaki Yehudim. We are Yehudim. But if you want to say Jewish in the sense of Jewish books, Sfarim Yehudim. You don't say Sfarim Yehudim. And then for the feminine plural, the adjective and noun are one word, Yehudiot. So I find it interesting when it comes to words like this, Hebrew noun, Hebrew adjective and noun. The masculine singular is both noun and adjective, and the feminine plural is both noun and adjective. And then the other forms, they change. Like guess you'll make the same case with other people's as well. But these are the two that will stand out. All right, people, I did a lot of extra material with these words, but it's important that you get a feel for it. And then you take your break. When you come back, I'll have you do the reading again. And let me just look ahead a little bit. Yeah, we gotta do it. Yeah, you'll be doing a lot of the readings. Okay. Zay Gates, why don't you take a break right now? I'll